And I thought you couldn't talk.
You have 5 seconds before the door is sealed.
What are they doing?
Applause. For you, Milne.
Our second movie that we're talking about for this month is The Watchers. It's starring Dakota Fanning. It is directed by Ishana Shyamalan. This is M. Night Shyamalan's daughter. She's 22 years old, and this is her first directorial feature film debut, and she was able to launch a Dakota Fanning huge budget film launching in the middle of summer movie season. Have you seen the trailers for The Watchers? And
I'm trying to remember. I think I might have seen an ad before a YouTube video once. It's not one that's been like heavily on my radar, but I've like been hearing about it for sure. But I don't think I've seen a trailer for it, at least not like paying attention wise.
And the first couple trailers were just the idea is that they get Dakota Fanning and a couple of random strangers get kidnapped, and they get put into this big box, and they are made to entertain some aliens or creatures or something of some kind, and they communicate back and forth through some amber-colored mirrors or lights or, for whatever reason, some standard definition televisions.
I have seen. Okay, yeah, this is kind of starting to ring a bell.
Yeah, and then the latest trailer shows Dakota Fanning basically getting kidnapped by these otherworldly creatures, and she's on vacation or she's on a trip into Ireland, and she goes off in the middle of nowhere, and her technology stops working, and then she kind of gets captured of some kind. The lighting and the cinematography in this looks amazing. The supporting cast, I really haven't seen much from this supporting cast before. Olwen Fouere, I'm pretty sure I'm mispronouncing her name, is the older lady in the trailers. Georgina Campbell's in this film. A bunch of people I've never heard of before. Most of them are European, and but it looks pretty well cast. The cinematography looks amazing. I am excited to see the directorial debut from Ishana Shyamalan, and I love Dakota Fanning. And it's weird to think that she's now 30 years old.
Yeah, it's weird.
And she's been a star for 75% of her life.
Yeah.
So the fact that Dakota Fanning chose to be in this film, she didn't have to do M. Night Shyamalan a solid like that, but the fact that she chose this to be a film that she would be in, is a good sign for me. So that and the cinematography are part of the good for me. Any good things stand out for you about The Watchers?
Yeah, I mean, Dakota Fanning sure is a standout. Which, fun fact, the first time I ever saw her was in the Cat in the Hat movie, which my Nana still insists is the worst movie she ever had to sit through with me.
The singular worst film.
Yep, she used to take us to movies all the time, and she took us to my sister and I. She took us to Cat in the Hat, and she still says that is the worst movie that she ever had to take us to, was the Cat in the Hat, which is just funny. Yeah, no, this one's really interesting to me because M. Night Shyamalan, love him, hate him. He's a legendary director because just the imprint he leaves when he makes a film, whether you like it, whether you don't, he always has something interesting to say and always something interesting to bring to the table. So this is his daughter doing this movie. This is her directorial debut. Some of like what you were saying kind of reminds me of like, oh, that feels like it's pulled from Split. That feels like it's pulled from Signs. That feels like it's pulled from The Village. Like it's kind of interesting. It's like I can kind of feel like I can see the inspirations from her father in the story, and I'm sure she probably got advice and help and notes from M. Night Shyamalan as well, which is going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I don't expect it to be a huge hit. I think that Shyamalan's name, even though it's a lineage attachment, it's still an attachment, and I just feel like the Shyamalan name just kind of brings that kind of division and just many different opinions about him come into play. So I'm not quite sure how it's going to turn out. I'm very curious to see how it's going to turn out. I don't expect it to be a huge hit, but it has my attention. Definitely has my attention.
as far as the good and the bad, is M. Night Shyamalan's attachment to this film a little bit of both, you think?
Yeah, it's kind of mixed. I would almost lean towards bad, only because and I feel kind of it's unfair to her because this is her directorial debut and she's just the daughter of Shyamalan, but it's just having Shyamalan's name attached, it just automatically brings something to, like, even me, like, even the way I'm talking about it, like, oh, she probably had some advice or she probably worked a little bit with her father on it, which when you think about that, it's like, well, is he really the best director to get advice for with your first movie? You know what I mean? Like there's association with it that is mixed because on the one hand, big director name, he's had some magnificent hits, but he's also a name that brings up a lot of controversial conversations within the movie fandom. So it'll be very interesting. I hope that I hope she's able to stand on her own with this. I hope this movie's able to stand on its own. I hope that she's able to stand on her own as a director, because that's another thing too, is there's going to be comparison, especially
Does
with it being the daughter.
the Nepo baby, does the nepotism angle of her getting this film out in theaters in summer movie season with a wide release at 22 years old, is that a negative for you? Is that part of the bad?
Not for me personally. I'm sure some people will have the nepotism. For me, I don't really subscribe to nepotism very much. For me, it's just kind of life. We're all dealt different cards. We all have different, like, I even thinking about it for like YouTube channels. There are some people who are able to go to early fan screenings and get their reviews out like a week before the movie comes out. I'm not able to do that. Some people have to work Friday nights for like in the evenings and can't see the movie on Friday, but I don't have to do that. I can see it on Friday night. So it's all about getting like your every life has different cards dealt. And in this case, she ended up being the daughter of a famous director. So that was her card dealt in life. It gave her a step up, sure, but it's just what she was dealt with. And I don't think it's fair to any movie getting made is hard work. Any movie getting made has to go through a system, has to go through a process. It's not easy to get a movie made, and it's even harder to make the movie. So I don't want to just say, "Oh, she's M. Night Shyamalan's daughter. Of course, she has a movie," because she didn't. She even could have gone a different direction in life. She didn't have to do the directing route. And if she happened to be born from a famous director, good for her. Like, that's I'm looking forward to seeing if the M. Night Shyamalan legacy will continue through her. That's actually really cool if you think about it, because we're not going to have M. Night Shyamalan forever as a director, but now we've got a new Shyamalan. That could be really cool.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with you because I think that, yes, nepotism definitely plays a role, absolutely, especially at that age. But it's one of those things where she's got to deliver.
Yeah,
I mean, yes, she gets the advantage of her father being a Hollywood director. Yes, absolutely. But even with all those connections, if this movie tanks at the box office or is awful in its construction, or just if it sucks,
yeah,
there no studio is going to come out and give her $100 million and say go make another movie.
exactly.
So it is a huge risk for her to take at that young of an age. And to a certain extent, it's a huge risk for M. Night Shyamalan to put one of his daughters in
Absolutely.
that position. I think about like Jason Reitman, being Ivan Reitman's son. He worked his way up through the indie movie scene,
Hmm.
and yeah, he's his father's son. Yes, he's the son of a famous Hollywood director, but he worked his way up through the indie movie scene and did movies for like Thank You for Smoking. He went to film school, did all of those things, and so when he then took over the Ghostbusters franchise, he was able to work on it with his dad,
Yeah,
and he had already established himself to a certain extent, um, on his own 2 feet. He had done Oscar-nominated films, so it is kind of interesting to see two different second-generation Hollywood royalty directors
hmm,
making big-budget films and different ways of getting there. But yeah, I'm hopefully to me that's more of a good thing than a bad thing. Yes, nepotism, obviously, but I like the idea that if she's that mature at 22 years old to lead a Hollywood production with hundreds of employees,
yeah.
dozens of actors, and is able to do that, to me, that's part of the good. Uh, what about the meh? Is there anything about this either the M. Night Shyamalan factor itself, or the, well, is there going to be a twist? And is it, oh, it's dark and it's moody? And, is there a meh factor in here too for you at all with this project?
Nothing that really sticks out right off the top of my head about a meth. I mean, even the premise sounds pretty cool. Like I kind of said, like it does sound like a mixture of a bunch of different M. Night Shyamalan movie elements, but the way they come together in the premise does sound intriguing to me. Yeah, I don't think there's a meh for me at the moment. I don't expect it to do crazy numbers in the box office. Basically, is the meh is like this kind of feels like a movie that's gonna go under the radar, and if it's really good, maybe it'll get like rediscovered, and people will be like, "Why didn't anyone go and see this in the theaters? This is awesome." But other than that, I don't really think there's anything attached to it that makes me think meh at the moment.
So is this a film that you think will be like a streaming gem come fall when horror films start coming out? You know, when it's horror movie season, once the weather starts turning a little colder. Do you think that this is the type of film that will find a second life on streaming?
Yeah, if it's good. I think the worst thing that could happen to this movie is if it feels like one of the worst or one of the lesser M. Night Shyamalan movies. Like I feel like if she doesn't put her own print on it, if it doesn't feel distinct enough, like you kind of mentioned there, if we're expecting a twist, or if she tries to do a twist and the twist is terrible, like if she tries to do something that feels very close to what M. Night Shyamalan would do, I feel like that would hurt her quite a bit, honestly. So hopefully she's able to find her own voice and her own route, but I think it's gonna be very difficult. So we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, and if for me the meh factor is, yeah, if there is a twist where Bruce Willis shows up and drowns in a half an inch of water, that to me, if there's something like that, to me that's got to be, as the post factor of the meh of it all. So for this film, is this a good, bad, or meh? And are you planning on watching in theaters?
I'm gonna say it's a good because even though it's Shyamalan's name attached, it's a new voice, and I think new voices in Hollywood are always good. I think new perspectives and new angles brought to film is always a good thing, and it's an original idea as far as I know. It sounds original. It sounds like it's got a good cast. I'm gonna lean towards good, and yeah, I think I'll check it out.
Nice. Yeah, me too. I'm not sure if I'm actually going to go see it in theaters, but it is one that did grab my attention, and the fact that it's got such strong visuals. Yes, that's credit to the cinematographer, but also I think is a credit to Ishana Shyamalan and her directorial sense too. So I also put this kind of leaning good, but this is definitely one that could fall into the meh.
Yeah, it's
If
mixed.
it's not
It's a
done
mixed
right.
bag.
Yes, absolutely.